Oke, selamat malam Indonesia. Selamat malam Bapak Ibu dan juga peserta webinar sekalian. Apa kabar Anda semua di malam hari ini, tepat di tanggal 26 Agustus 2020. Kembali saya sangat senang sekali bisa hadir di malam hari ini bertemu dengan Bapak Ibu sekalian dan juga para peserta webinar dalam rangkaian Indonesia Blockchain Week 2020. Ini adalah hari ke-6 dari rangkaian event webinar yang sudah diselenggarakan. Dan malam hari ini, seperti biasa, saya akan berbicara bahwa setiap malam webinar ini akan sangat spesial. Ya, karena di setiap webinar kita akan menghadirkan keynote speakers yang tentunya dapat memberikan kita informasi dan juga pelajaran melalui webinar ini. Dan juga nanti akan kami buka panel diskusi bersama para panelis, yang juga tentunya panelis kita malam hari ini nggak kalah kece-kece, keren-keren, CEO, CTO, Director, and so on. Dan juga nanti akan ada pengundian. Untuk Anda, Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian yang beruntung, kita akan mencari 10 orang pemenang beruntung untuk mendapatkan masing-masing hadiah berupa uang sebesar $20 ya. Tapi ada istilah yang bilang tak kenal maka tak sayang. Saya mau perkenalkan diri lagi, saya Nelsi Hombing. Saya siap untuk memandu acara webinar ini sampai tepat 2 jam ke depan, dimanapun Anda berada, lagi streaming di rumah, di kantor, di kafe kayaknya masih social distance gitu ya. Bersama dengan keluarga Anda, ya mudah-mudahan Anda dalam kondisi sehat walafiat ya. Amin. Dan saya harap juga Anda boleh stay sampai dengan akhir webinar nanti 2 jam ke depan, dan di mana akhir webinar nanti kita akan memberikan QR code di layar gadget Anda untuk Anda bisa pindai atau scan untuk mengisi survei kami. Seperti biasa, setiap malam itu akan ada keyword untuk setiap survei yang diadakan setelah acara webinar selesai ya. Dan keyword untuk malam hari ini, untuk survei nanti adalah assets. Sudah dicatat Bapak Ibu? Keyword untuk survei malam hari ini adalah assets. Ya. Oke, kalau begitu kami harap sekali lagi Bapak Ibu sekalian dan juga para peserta webinar dapat terus bersama dengan kami selama 2 jam ke depan, karena saya yakin dan percaya ini akan banyak banget ilmu yang kita dapatkan. Tapi untuk Anda yang mungkin sudah punya pertanyaan dan penasaran, ya, boleh silahkan Anda tujukan pertanyaan Anda melalui kolom komentar di setiap platform di mana Anda menyaksikan webinar pada malam hari ini. Sekali lagi saya ingatkan untuk Anda yang punya pertanyaan, jangan pernah ragu-ragu, jangan disimpan sendiri, nanti jerawatan. Anda silakan tulis atau ketik di kolom komentar yang ada di setiap platform di mana Anda menyaksikan webinar di kesempatan malam hari ini di Indonesia Blockchain Week 2020. Saya dari tadi belum bocorin topiknya malam hari ini apa ya. Untuk yang penasaran, topik webinar kita malam hari ini itu adalah alternative method to cross-border asset transfer using crypto assets. Nah, jadi untuk Anda yang punya pertanyaan seputar topik tadi, silakan. Sudah mulai dikumpulkan dari sekarang, nanti kami akan kurasi, bisa kami bacakan, dan juga bisa dijawab oleh para panelis kita. Tapi sebelum menuju ke panel discussion dan juga Q&A session, kita akan bersama-sama mendengarkan informasi yang akan diberikan oleh keynote speaker kita yang pertama. Tanpa berpanjang lebar lagi, keynote speaker kita yang pertama is from Switzerland, Jack Yu.
Hi.
Hi,
everyone.
Jack.
Yeah. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Very good. It's a pleasure to be here, but before you present your presentation, I would like to read your CV first. Jack Yu, as co-founder and CCO of Switchio, yeah, Jack is highly accomplished UI UX specialist who hold fast knowledge user interfaces for complex technical interfaces. While also possessing a keen eye for aesthetics, Jack also always been highly involved in brand image development and had initiated and led numerous creative ventures for Fortune 500 companies. All right, then, Jack, are you ready to share your screen?
Yep. I will share my screen now.
Okay, what topic would you bring for us tonight?
My topic tonight is the future of cross-border transfers.
Okay, the future of cross-border transfer. All right, then, without taking any longer, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jack on the screen.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jack. I am one of the co-founders and chief commercial officer at Switchio. We are a decentralized exchange based in Singapore. So when running any sorts of business these days, it's pretty much the norm to have a decentralized team and to have a team based in various different countries. So, you know, there's many reasons why you might want to have a team in different countries. Most of the reasons actually it's related to cost, like because for example, when we hire at Switcher, because when we're hiring developers and any sort of staff based in Singapore, the cost is pretty much higher as compared to what we will get when we hire from neighboring countries. So, and this is quite apparent in the current global environment as well. But it's also what we've been seeing in many of these different tech companies is that a lot of them are currently asking a lot of their staff to work from home permanently, and that kind of brings about a new sort of opportunities for people that are from a variety of different countries, because you now have people that are working anywhere that now have the opportunity to work at any of these like top tech companies. So so we also been seeing a lot of rise in property inventory in very high cost of living cities, especially in San Francisco, where many of these tech companies are based. Because as more and more people move away from very high cost of living cities for a more affordable lifestyle, we have seen a rise in property inventory, and also a drop in property prices. So as our commerce and teams move more and more decentralized, it's also natural that the funds, the way that we transfer money does too. However, it's still very expensive for us to process any sort of international transfers for any sort of payments, basically. So we have seen popular digital payment gateways as popularized in China, such as WeChat Pay and Alipay, that have actually bring the merchant cost down to 0% as compared to what we've seen in other Western countries, where the setup of business costs is typically much higher when you start accepting credit card payments and these sort of payment gateway services. So while we move to some sort of global commerce system, we can also use currencies like Bitcoin. But the issue with Bitcoin is that it still cannot be a global currency. I feel, because it's still highly volatile, and that's kind of why we are moving into stablecoins. And we have seen a huge growth in the stablecoin market over the past couple of years. In fact, in just a year, Tether actually increased their circulating supply by almost 2.5x, and USDT and PAX and BUSD and many other stablecoins have also performed extremely well in terms of increasing their market cap. So the issue with current stablecoins is that many of these stablecoins are actually based on US dollars, and with it based on US dollars, the issue with payments in general is that many of these merchants or vendors that we work with might not actually want to accept US dollars in fear that the US dollar is weakening as a result of the multiple stimulus checks and bailouts that the US government has introduced in the form of fiscal and monetary policies. So this is quite evident in the DXY, which rose really sharply in March due to the crash in the stock market back then, and now, which actually went down pretty sharply over the past couple of months. So the weakening of the US dollars has actually led a lot of investors to move into securities and different types of assets like crypto and gold and many other types of commodities as well. So we've actually seen investors of various different types of income groups move into using their stimulus checks to actually invest to hedge against their inflation risk. So we have also seen Russia and China, like global superpowers, holding up on gold as a form of a hedge against their US dollar reserves, presumably. because you kind of realize like, ever since the global financial crisis in 2008, the introduction of new US currency it's detrimental to the US dollar reserves, and it's in the US best effort to actually inflate away their currency such that they can pay off their debt. So as this has been more and more apparent as actually we've seen a huge drop in China and Russia dollar denominated, China and Russia's US denominated trades over the past couple of years. Over the past 5 years, the US denominated trade have actually went from over 80% to currently around 50%. So we've been seeing like, these global superpowers actually moving away from using US dollars into using different currencies for these sort of trade settlements. And furthermore, the issue with using US dollars and the current interbank transfer system, which is the SWIFT payment system that everyone is very familiar with, is that SWIFT is also very vulnerable. Using the SWIFT system leaves a lot of these banks very vulnerable to sanctions that are enforced by the US government, and as such, like you see a lot of effort with China and trying to move away from using the SWIFT system altogether. So through using through creating their own sovereign digital currency, that's kind of where we see like a lot of these efforts a lot of Chinese efforts have actually been concentrated into launching their own digital currency, and that's something that's one of the hot topics now of central bank launched digital currencies, the sovereign backed digital currencies basically. And we've seen a variety of countries actually working on these sovereign digital currencies, and especially even in Singapore, where we have Project Ubin, which is our digital currency that is actually SGD based. Yeah. So there are many benefits for sovereign digital currencies, such that we can actually have we can be more financially inclusive over the unbanked, because you kind of have now you have this digital wallet that you give people financial inclusion to a variety of financial products or even digital products. Like if you have a digital wallet, now that you have a digital wallet, you can actually use it to pay for different types of digital services and goods that can be shipped to your house that would otherwise not have been available to you should you not have a bank account. And we also have costless transfers and setup costs for businesses, such as what we've seen with WeChat Pay and Alipay, as compared to setting up the variety of payment channels. And we have greater transparency over the movement of currency. So much better transparency, which leads to better regulations for anti-money laundering and terrorist financing. And we also have greater fiscal stability, which, as a result of not giving that much power to the banks in the form of having them do fractional reserve banking, basically. So, yeah. So we've also seen a lot of digitalization of various different assets, like Pax Gold and Digix Gold, like that are digital assets based on the blockchain that give people, on-chain sort of investments that people can potentially use these foreign currencies on. So people can now really buy gold like with XSGD or a digital variety of their digital stablecoin that is based in their country. And also it gives people access to many of these high interest rates products that would otherwise not have been available to them. So currently, in the world that we're experiencing, where close to zero interest rates and even negative interest rates, people are now able to access popular lending platforms, peer-to-peer lending, and peer-to-peer interest-generating platforms that can potentially give them a better, higher rate of return than what they've been getting from banks. So at Switcher, we have always been working on decentralizing trade and interoperability between blockchains. And currently, we're working on Switcher Trade Hub, which is an interoperable layer 2 solution that lets us connect with a variety of different blockchains, and that will eventually branch out to government-led blockchains as well. So this is one of the initiatives that we feel that's really important to us, because we realize like there's going to be a lot of demand in the sovereign digital currency space, and it's very likely that these digital currencies will be based on their own blockchains to begin with. So we kind of see the future in that, and that's why we've been moving towards the interoperable front. And we've also been launching a variety of different products that supplement our current exchange as well, such as the decentralized liquidity pool with Zilliqa, which actually facilitates a swap between two different tokens. It's quite similar to what Uniswap actually has, and it's driven by a constant product formula. And currently, soon we will launch this with XRGD and BUSD swaps. So it's kind of like an FX market within a liquidity pool itself. And we feel like this is just the first example of a decentralized FX market on any sort of exchange platform. And we are also launching a decentralized derivatives exchange that allows users to create any sort of CFD markets. So users can actually trade any sort of markets that they desire through our platform that is not limited to US dollars denominated assets. Yeah. So Switcher Trade Hub is actually has a built-in liquidity pool that's quite similar to what Uniswap actually uses, and we ensure that there's a limited liquidity sort of system within our exchange that is still constrained within an order book, such that we can do FX swaps or any sort of transfers of digital assets that may suit any of these investors' needs, basically. And Switcher Trade Hub is also validated by a network of very trusted validators to ensure true decentralization and security over the network. So the idea of Switcher Trade Hub is actually the interoperability part, where we can accept any sort of token, and we mean the equivalent token on the Trade Hub itself, such that trades can be executed in a trustless and usable manner. Yeah. So we've been working with very closely with blockchain partners like Zilliqa and Neo to launch this sort of interoperable solutions for them and liquidity pools. And also, we also have a few partnerships with Kyber and Uniswap, where we work closely with them to integrate their liquidity pools onto our exchange as well. So whichever assets that you can trade on their exchange, whichever asset that is actually liquid on their exchange, we also pull liquidity from these exchanges and mimic them on our order books, so that our order books will always be extremely liquid. So we feel that the future of cross-border payments it's the first step of cross-border payments actually financial inclusion of basically a global financial inclusion that allows anyone to invest in any sort of variety of different assets and investment vehicles that is currently not available to them because of geographical reasons. And by creating this variety of different products, we hope that closes the financial gap and between all parties involved through decentralization. Yeah. So if you'd like to find out more about what we do, you can visit our Telegram channel or our website. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jack, for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, could you stay a bit longer? We are going to meet again on panel discussion later on.
Sure, perfect.
Alright then. Oke, Bapak Ibu sekalian, itu tadi Jack ya dari Switchio yang sudah sharing informasi kepada kita di webinar malam hari ini. Sebelum kita lanjut ke keynote speaker kita yang kedua, saya kembali mengingatkan Bapak Ibu sekalian untuk nanti mengisi survei yang dimana Ibu Bapak nanti akan melihat ada QR code yang Bapak Ibu sekalian dapat pindai atau scan melalui gadget Anda. Dan keyword untuk malam hari ini, untuk survei kita, itu adalah aset. Ya. Plus, untuk Bapak Ibu yang mungkin sudah punya pertanyaan, silahkan loh, drop di kolom komentar. Ini kalau saya lihat sudah banyak juga nih Bapak Ibu dan juga para peserta webinar sekalian yang sudah penasaran ya. Sudah drop beberapa pilih, dan kita akan cari tahu siapakah pertanyaan yang akan langsung dijawab sama panelis kita, tapi itu nanti. Kalau sekarang kita akan ketemu dulu sama keynote speaker yang kedua. Dia adalah seorang creative director from Harmony.one. He is the one and only Robin Smith. Hello, Robin. Robin ini dari tahun 2014 ini bekerja di bidang production gitu ya, sebagai produser, editor, director, dan juga visual effect artist. Pernah juga bikin musik video, terus kemudian TV entertainment, dan juga pernah bekerja di beberapa brand seperti Volkswagen, Shell, BMW, BBC, Philips, and then MTV, Vice, dan juga Monocle, banyak banget ya. Halo Robin. Do we have Robin
Hello.
online?
Yes.
Hi.
You got me. Yes. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Very good. Yeah, pleased to be here.
All right, then. Okay, thank you for being here, Robin. Are you ready to share your presentation for tonight?
Yes, I am. Shall I go ahead?
All right, then. Sure thing. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next keynote speaker, please welcome on the screen, Robin.
Let me share my screen. That's not it. That's not it. We have a technical difficulty. Let me try that again. Oh, I've lost my presentation. This is a good start, guys. Really good start. Okay. Give me 1 second while I get this going. So basically what I'm going to talk about today is Crossfi, which is Harmony's cross-border payment system and remittance program using Harmony's high-speed sharded blockchain. And if I can get my presentation up, I'll be able to tell you all about it. And I believe we're back. Okay. So apologies for that. It's just loading up. So there's a map of the world, and on that map, lots of money, and there's lots of money moving around the world. And it shouldn't be a problem in this day and age, but it kind of is. I want to bring it back to me and answer the question, who is this guy? Who is this guy with a banana on his face? Well, my journey into crypto has been a kind of a strange one. I'm a filmmaker. I'm someone who's been working in entertainment for the last 20 years. And there's one thing about working in entertainment and working in film, it's designed to bankrupt you. It's designed to make you poor. And I think I came to a realization about 5 years ago that there was an issue with all of this. And it was a problem for me because I had a family, and I realized that there was one thing getting in the way of everything I wanted to do. And I realized I have to solve money. And that's quite a profound thing to say, because the idea of money and what we do with it and how we use it is profound and impacts us in ways we may not understand. And I think we, as a species, have been kind of sleepwalking our way through what it means to own money and to use it. And I think one of the fun things about crypto is that it forces you to reconnect with the idea of money and of value. So I want to take you back to 1984 and a bank called Midland in the UK. And this was my very first bank. And if you look down the bottom left, you'll see what looks like a really funky, cool, young, youthful bank card. And I was 7 years old when I opened my first bank account. And I loved it. I loved being connected to that bank. I would go in there and I felt like I was part of something. And then in 1992, this happened. Midland Bank became, well, it was still Midland Bank, but if you recognize the logo, it was actually bought by HSBC, the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation. And I actually left HSBC this year after 35 years as a customer. And I didn't get anything. I didn't get a thank you. I didn't get a, sorry to see you go. It was just my bank account was closed. And after 35 years as a customer, that struck me as very strange. And I realized that things had moved on. That feeling of excitement I had opening my first bank account at Midland would never come back. So I guess the issue I had was, how did I tell myself, someone who considered themselves, woke, on top of things, to take another look at banking? And how would I tell other people who had also spent 35 years at the bank that maybe there was a different way to do it? And when you break it down, blockchain is a communications problem. Yes, there's tech, there's regulatory problems, but fundamentally it's a communications problem. How do we tell other people about this tech? How do we break it down and simplify it in ways that people can understand? Because it's very fundamental. Now, 4 years ago, when I joined blockchain, it was a lot harder to see where everything was going. We were in the grips of the ICO craze. It says here the ICO party was still going strong. The big story of the moment was Segwit. It was making Bitcoin scalable. Nobody was talking about stablecoins. And yet, if we fast forward to today and we look at the total value locked in DeFi, it looks very much like that ICO graph. But now the thinking is different. And we're in a place where we can genuinely talk about new models of finance, new models of thinking about money. And yet still, to understand DeFi, to understand what's actually going on in this space, requires an enormous level of what they call DeFi Q, a high level of kind of thinking about liquidity pools, automated market makers. It's very, very difficult to understand. There's a very high barrier of entry. And if we look at these words, decentralized and finance, I find myself, again, blocked by something, which is this word decentralized. Surely we can just cut that off and say it's finance. Why do we have to be decentralized? Now, we haven't earned the right to be there yet, but we are fundamentally thinking about money in new ways. And if we keep calling it decentralized, then we risk alienating people who are not ready to be decentralized yet. And at Harmony, we use the word open to describe it, open finance. And that feels like a more honest way to approach it because, so many times people are told that they can't open a bank account, they can't have a loan because of their situation, because of their track record, because of who they are. And that's closed finance. And what's wonderful about DeFi is that it doesn't care who you are or where you came from. If you have the funds, you have the funds. And that's wonderful, and that's open finance. But it goes to something even more profound and deeper. And again, it's a communications thing. And the wonderful thing about the Harmony token ticker 1 is that it allows you to be playful with it in terms of words. And I started playing around with what 1 could be in terms of money. And you get this, my money 1. And that for me is what's fundamentally at the heart of DeFi. It's not their money, it's your money, it's my money. And of course, this is just a playful GIF, just an idea. But I think if we think about Harmony and what Harmony can be and what it can do, particularly with stable coins like Rupiah, my money is profound. And so that's where the kind of thinking that I do on a daily basis as a communications person in blockchain, as a storyteller in blockchain, is all about. Now, if we look at the DeFi pickup this year, it's been ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I was starting to think about DeFi at the end of last year, and it was really niche. It was a bunch of very smart people kind of considering different ways of doing curve, liquidity pools, this kind of thing. We hadn't had the governance token surge yet, but now we do. And DeFi is really becoming the victim of its own success. DeFi is almost exclusively built on Ethereum. And as we know, Ethereum, it starts to suffer if you throw too much at it. And what we see now is the return of the ETH killers narrative. This is high speed, high throughput, cheap transaction blockchains, of which there were many back in 2017. They all raised a ton of money, all coming back to take a piece of this pie because Ethereum can't cope. And of course, Harmony is one of those. We are collected in that narrative as well. So let's have a look at Harmony. Where are we at? Well, Harmony is sharded POS. And if you know what Ethereum 2.0 is going to be, it's going to be sharded proof of stake. We're decentralized, secured by 1,000 validators, and we have 100% network uptime. We recently reduced the block finality from 8 seconds to 5 seconds. And this is kind of important because block finality means the transaction is cleared, it's done, it cannot be reversed. And if you send a transaction on Ethereum, it'll probably go quite fast. But if you try and send it back, you're going to have to wait for finality to pass. And that can take 15, 20 minutes. And if it's a bad day, it can take up to an hour. But on Harmony, within 5 seconds, your transaction that went through is yours. And you can send it back. You can send it wherever you want. 5 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's barely enough time to have a sip of water. So speed, done. Now we're EVM compatible as well, so which means it's pretty easy for anyone from Ethereum to bring their project to Harmony and plug it in and get going. And the real headline is the cost. At the moment, it costs around about 1,000th of a cent to send a transaction on Harmony. And you can make it cheaper. It'll be a little bit slower, but it won't be that slow. 1,000th of a cent. So if you think about the cost of that, in order for it to be 1 cent, the cost of a Harmony token would have to be 1,000 times higher. And 1 cent still doesn't seem like that expensive a transaction. So we're in good shape here in terms of cost. And of course, we can, if things really get out of hand, we can always adjust the economic model to make the transaction fee still competitive and cheap. So fast and cheap, sharded, it's everything Ethereum 2.0 is supposed to be, but it's here right now. And in terms of projects that have actually done this, we are the first. So that's all well and good, but it doesn't really matter if nobody's building on you. So as Tom Cruise says, show me the money. So we did that. We had an internal DeFi hackathon, and this was the brainchild of our CEO, Stephen Say. He challenged us to build 5 of the most popular DeFi projects on Harmony. And because this code is open source, it's relatively easy to do so. So we did Maker, we did Balancer, we did Wire, we did Curve, and we did Arv. There were 5 teams, and they did it in 7 days. And here are basically what we did. We did single collateral DAI on mainnet, which was tested by 60 users. We ported Balancer liquidity pools over. We had new yield farming strategies, including staked tokens as a collateral, which is really exciting. So you can take the liquidity in staked tokens and still use it as collateral. Staking liquidity from staked tokens is actually quite an interesting idea. And we're looking at projects like Staffy to understand how we can do more with that. We collateralized one to create one DAI. We issued WBTC on Harmony, and we issued curve.fi liquidity pools with low slippage and deep liquidity. So the point of all this was to prove that we could run these projects on Harmony and to start thinking about what the costs would be compared to Ethereum. And it's pretty competitive. And we now have 600 developers currently building DeFi on Harmony. We've got hackathons and bounties on DevPost, on Gitcoin, and Decentral Hack. So there's a lot going on. And of course, everybody's building DeFi right now. And DeFi it's so hot right now. It's almost too hot right now. And that's kind of a problem because it's sort of dominated by whales, and there are very high barriers for all but the most knowledgeable in crypto. But the benefits of DeFi innovation can and should be brought to the broader public. And I kind of liken this to F1 cars, because F1 cars race around a track at very high speed. It's impossible to become a driver. But the technological innovations that are made possible by F1 filter down into the cars that we drive on the road every day. And I feel like the speed and pace of innovation in DeFi at the highest level has lessons and implications for everything that we can then bring into real world scenarios. And things like stablecoins and the improvement in stability and security of stablecoins is one of those things. And that really brings us to what I would call DeFi for the masses, which is CrossFi. And in this instance, it's remittance. And we call it remittance reimagined, but essentially it's sending money from one country to another at the lowest cost and the highest speed. So let's have a look at the opportunity in CrossFi. There are currently 6 billion people living in developing and emerging countries, and they account for 60% of the world's GDP and 80% of global growth since 2008. So huge market opportunity, but one in which the financial system hasn't yet caught up. So we have weak and volatile currencies that are not accepted globally. We have limited access to foreign exchange and poor access to banking services. And globally, if you send a remittance today, it'll usually cost an average of 6.67% of the amount sent. There's actually quite a big variation between countries, but that's around where the average is. And according to the World Bank, if we cut prices by at least 5 percentage points, you could save up to $16 billion a year. And that is a lot of money, actually. So there's a big opportunity there for CrossFi. And it's a problem. I think people believe that it's already been solved, but in so many ways, it just hasn't. And it's funny when you do the research to discover just how much it really hasn't been solved. So the opportunity is fantastic. And if we look at Indonesia, for instance, the country received $11.7 billion in remittances in 2019, which account for 1.1% of the country's GDP. That's big. We're looking at $5 on average for fees for transfers. And if you're a small business doing business overseas, or you're sending money home, these things add up. They really do. Now, we've already got peer-to-peer currency exchange marketplaces like WorldRemit, TransferWise, and Currency Fair. And there's some problems with these. They are useful and they do get the job done, but things like the estimate, the rate you see may not be the rate you get. You can get delayed processing, and if the currency has moved 3% from when you booked your deal, then the model automatically pauses it and you have to go again. And then there can be instances where you have imbalanced buyers and sellers. And we saw this during Brexit, that there was suddenly inadequate liquidity to manage the transfers. Now, I actually use TransferWise myself when I'm handling my salary from Harmony. So I get paid in US dollars into a TransferWise account. That TransferWise account then gets sent to Holland in euros, and then I transfer it from my business account to my current account. And I'm amazed because the TransferWise to my European bank account happens almost instantaneously, and yet it cost me $45 each time. So speed-wise, it's actually very, very good, but cost-wise, it's still a lot. And what's really entertaining is if I try and send the money from my Dutch business bank account, which is in euros, to my Dutch current account, which is in euros in the same country, it'll take 6 hours. And I do not know why. So there's still a lot of room for improvement. And I think that's where Harmony can make a big difference. And we have now built a demo for Money Home, which is the first instant low-cost P2P remittance exchange built on Harmony. And the way it works is this. Imagine, the demo at the moment is for sending US dollars to Indian rupees. And the thing that powers it, that makes it all work, is BUSD, which is the stablecoin built by Binance and Paxos. And we now we're launching BUSD on Harmony. It's currently on Ethereum, but we're building a version of it on Harmony specifically to power transactions like this. And the way it works is kind of a 6-step process. You initiate a transaction via a simple app interface, and then you fund your account with USD. In our example, we use the Stripe API, but there are other systems you could use. Then the USD is converted to BUSD using the Binance API. And then the clever bit, the BUSD is sent cross-border to a receiving address using Harmony, 5-second finality, super quick, super cheap. And then that BUSD is converted to USD by the Bank of Hodlers, which is an Indian cryptocurrency exchange. And then it's converted to Indian rupees using local payment rails such as UPI. That seems like a lot of steps. And of course, there are parties like Stripe, like UPI, like Bank of Hodlers, that are all involved. But actually, the process is incredibly quick and orders of magnitude cheaper. So this key piece of it, which is the BUSD, which is the mechanism by which we can achieve very fast, very transparent cross-border transactions, is key. And of course, being blockchain, you can see where your money is at any given time, but it finalizes in 5 seconds. So by the time you've loaded up the block explorer, it will have already cleared. Fantastic stuff. So the benefits of this, well, it benefits remittance, and remittance in developing and emerging economies totaled $425 billion in 2016. And what we hope Money Home will do was provide customers with seamless, instantaneous, and cheap remittance alternatives. It'll help power trade in developing emerging economies, which at the moment is around 6.3 trillion. And it'll help local traders who struggle to convert their local currencies into USD and are forced to travel with cash to avoid doing that and de-risk for both suppliers and buyers. And then there's, of course, the whole world of interoperable mobile wallets. And there were 450 million new mobile wallet subscribers in developing and emerging economies in 2017. There are a whole bunch of inefficiencies built into this process. Telecoms providers have been providing these, and everything's just very efficient and can be cleaned up and made smoother and faster. And as this technology matures, those interfaces are probably where we're going to see the most growth in the near future. So that's Money Home. So we talked about BUSD, and I think Jack was talking about the risk associated with the US dollar at the moment. And that's why when we think about Indonesia and the rupiah token, having an Indonesian stablecoin avoids all of that and allows people from these countries, and there's a migrant workforce in Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, and of course, Holland, to send money back quickly into the rupiah token and then into rupiah itself at the other end, which is fantastic. So in the future, we're looking to build more of these kind of stable coins. Obviously, a euro stable coin would be brilliant for the Eurozone. But really, once you start thinking about stable coins and what they're capable of, the world really is your oyster. And that's just such an exciting opportunity. And it doesn't require a lot of big brain thinking to do. We're solving one piece of quite a big problem in a very good, efficient way. And I'm very excited to see where this is going to go next. So as you can see here, our partners, Repair Token, Binance, and CoinDCX. It's going to be an exciting time. So that's my take on Crossfire. And all that remains me to say is terima kasih untuk mendengarkan. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Robin.
Did I say it right?
Yes, great, cool, man. Terima kasih. All right, then, Robin, thank you for sharing with us. But hold on a second, we are going to entering the panel discussion for tonight. Bapak Ibu sekalian, sekarang kita memasuki panel diskusi bersama para panelis. Tapi selain 2 keynote speaker tadi, akan ada tambahan 3 orang panelis yang akan saya undang di webinar malam hari ini. We are going to entering the panel discussion for tonight. Besides Jack and also Robin, I would like to invite the other panelists for tonight. There will be Dorian Johanning from Silo, S-Y-L-O. Hello, Dorian. Yeah, Dorian is a co-founder from Silo, co-founder and also business director of Silo, a decentralized private messenger and crypto wallet with over 250,000 users worldwide since its launch in late 2019. Do you have Dorian on the call?
Yes. How you doing?
Great. How are you doing, man?
Very well. Very well. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Yeah, such an honor to having you here for tonight. All right, then. Beside Dorian, we have Brian Condenanza from BDAO. Brian Condenanza is the CTO at BDAO, a decentralized finance startup. CTO at BDAO, also he is a blockchain and fintech researcher with extensive knowledge and experience in different crypto assets and also disruptive technologies. Good evening, Brian. Okay, we are still checking Brian. Also, we have Joe Sontini as our panelist for tonight. Joe is from Sendit as a head of product. Good evening, Joe. Joe currently leads the overall product team at Sendit, responsible for managing Sendit's suite of payment solutions from money in, money out, as well as supporting products. Joe started his career at Sendit almost 4 years ago and having seen Sendit's journey in becoming one of the best payment players in the country. Joe, are you already on the call?
Ready. Yep. Selamat malam semuanya. Terima kasih untuk nama saya. Saya tinggal di Jakarta 5 tahun, tapi sekarang saya di Amerika. Jadi kembali.
So you can speak bahasa. I didn't see it coming, man. Thank you, Joe, for attending this webinar for tonight. All right, then. We're still checking for Brian Condenanza from BDAO. We have Brian on the call. All right, then. I think Brian will let on join our panel discussion for tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, we already have 4 panelists for tonight. And now we are going to do a panel discussion for this webinar. I have several questions for the gentlemen, for you guys to answer. And also, I would like to open room for our audiences to drop their question on the comment box. So after this panel discussion, we are going to do some Q&A session. For the first question, what is a value transfer system and how is a value transfer being conducted traditionally? For example, between individuals, between banks, between countries. And I would like Joe to explain about how traditional payment and transfer system works in Sendit. Joe.
Sure. So at Sendit, we primarily, I guess, support companies that are dealing in fiat currencies. So pretty simple as a payment gateway, we help anybody who needs to move money, which is all companies, accept and send funds. So that we're working with the traditional system. So we work with banks if you're doing virtual account transfers, which is probably the primary way of moving money, especially in Indonesia. Of course, also e-wallets, but also cash at, for example, Alfamart or Indomaret. That's another way of dealing. But effectively, we go through the banking network. So at the end of the day, all money moves through the banks, whether that's the domestic switching networks under GEPA-N or internationally through SWIFT.
All right, thank you, Joe, for the answer. Anyone wants to add on this? What is value transfer system and how is value transfer being conducted traditionally? If no one
I
wants
think
to
Joe
add.
covered it pretty. I think Joe covered it pretty well.
Sure.
I can dive into specifics of Silo in the next one.
All right then. How does the centralized version asset transfer system on blockchain works differently from a traditional centralized version? And gentlemen, what are the pros and the cons of each system? For example, fee, speed, security, and so on. Robin from Harmony, would you like to share about how blockchain brings about a new way of trustless value transfer?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, one of the key attributes of a blockchain system is decentralization. So it can't be taken over by a central party and it can't fail. I think even at this early stage, we're not fully decentralized on any project. But in the future, that's the plan, to have 1,000 nodes running their own version of software. One of the best things about blockchain is its transparency. So you can see where money is at any time. There's an immutable trustless record of what has happened. And there's many different ways to leverage that. But fundamentally, you want to know if you sent something somewhere, A, that it arrived, and B, that it was what it was supposed to be when it was sent. That has always been the promise of blockchain and will continue to be so. Where we're getting to now is that we have networks that can reliably deliver at speed and not clog up under pressure, as we've seen with Ethereum. And that's only going to improve as the software improves and the networks themselves improve. But there's a huge amount of work still to be done at the smart contract level in terms of risk, insurance, auditing, because everything's still brand new and it hasn't really been tested under load. With, the more value there is, the more juicy you are to hackers and the more under attack you will be. So that's going to be a fun thing to look at in the near future. Defensibility.
All right, thank you, Robin. Dorian, would you add some, and maybe you want to share about micro payment with blockchain can potentially impact?
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely agree with those points made there as well. I mean, I think the big piece is the fundamental difference is that you're getting rid of that middleman or that intermediary, what I like to call inefficiencies in the system. The process of transferring value across borders at the moment is just incredibly painful. And what we're seeing the last couple of years in particular has been absolutely amazing to see in relation to innovation going specifically into financial services and cross-border payments. When we think about it, we haven't seen innovation on money for a century almost. And what we've seen the last few years and the blockchain boom has been a hyper focus on innovating on that fundamental concept of value and value transfer, which has been great to see. And the fact that we can now do it without the intermediaries that are putting in costs, delays, additional layers, vulnerable points in the system, we're now at the point where we can actually conduct those transactions without those parties. We're now going through a process of improving the efficiency and the reliability and the delivery. And the rate at which we're going right now, within a few years, I've got absolutely no doubt that traditional legacy systems are just not going to be able to stack up, and you're even going to find those systems having to migrate across to kind of survive or maintain and pick up from the expectations of the up and coming generation.
Okay, Joe, would you like to give your opinion about what do you think about blockchain versus the traditional system, as Indonesia payment provider is processing micro payment?
Sure. Well, I guess blockchain itself has so many applications beyond just cryptocurrencies, but within the cryptocurrency realm, I think a lot of the it's got the same benefits as everywhere, right? By skipping the centralized traditional financial systems, you've got definitely faster speed, but you've also got I guess it operates 24/7, right? You don't have to wait. Banks go down sometimes, especially around 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m. In Jakarta. So it allows for value transfer at any time, which is a huge benefit. I think the challenge in Indonesia is it currently it's not enabled by the regulators to be used for everyday commerce. It is primarily allowed to be used by investors for buying and selling and trading crypto. But currently, I believe the regulations prevent purchasing on an e-commerce site, for example, which I think does inhibit a lot of the potential for the time being. But at the same time, it gives a nice testing ground to see how this works for the country.
All right, Joe, thank you. Anyone, gentlemen, want to add on this? Oh, we already have Brian here. Hello, Brian.
Hi, how are you? Very good to be with all of you, and I think it's a very interesting panel. Yeah.
All right, then. It's just great to see you here again tonight. Yeah. All right, we are going to next question. Blockchain as a value transfer system has been difficult to acquire adoption due to price volatility of crypto assets. It is only till last 1 to 2 years with the uprise of stablecoin that blockchain starts to show its potential as a new value transfer system. Guys, what do you think is a stablecoin and why is it so important? Maybe Brian can answer or explain about this, about stablecoin.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, there are two main different types of stablecoins. You have centralized stablecoins, which is a stablecoin that basically says that a company or a trust account or something has a bank account with the same amount of dollars or euros in a bank account. So technically, every token of that will be worth $1 or €1. And then you have decentralized stablecoins that basically use other assets or crypto assets to make the peg with the US value of that. And there are benefits and bad things about different kind of stablecoins. And I think that there is a space in the market for both of them. What we are doing at IBW is basically building a decentralized stablecoin system. But I also think that centralized stablecoins may be useful for some things. I think it really help out with the market in terms of in terms of volatility, especially for example when you have types in the market when people are trading and getting into cryptocurrencies and then they can get out in some kind of stablecoin that they can trust. I think that's really important, and also for this particular topic that we're talking today, I think it's really important in terms of payments and cross-border transfer. I think it is kind of the ideal thing about crypto, in my opinion, that you can have something like a stablecoin and you can transfer it to another country with very small fees. I think it's pretty much the ideal in terms of what crypto is about. Some of the benefits about it, about the technology. For example, when I got in the space, it was, I was in Argentina and we couldn't get money from other countries. And that's how I got it, how people will pay me for things. And they would pay me in Bitcoin, there weren't stable coins around. But now that they're around, I think it's the best way to, for example, make payments in many ways. I think it's just better to pay in a stablecoin than a traditional crypto.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I would like to ask Jack from Switch.io. Would you mind to share about stablecoin and also what are you guys doing now with Switch.io DEX and how it can benefit the remittance market?
Right. So this is this is a really good question, actually. I mean, it's really hard for us it's really hard for me to answer this question without actually bringing out Libra, because I think part of the question is the volatility aspect of the crypto market and why stablecoins is important in this space. So I think Libra is Libra, which is led by Facebook, is a basket of basically currencies, of global currencies that's in a that ensures that there's as little volatility as possible, such that it can be used for global commerce. And I think that's one of the first steps that we've seen towards adopting a global sort of currency for commerce and trade. And I think as a role for DEX in this space, it's actually the FX transfers between these Libra and perhaps your home currency, because even if we can spend Libra amongst many of our commerce partners or vendors or any of these people that we do business with, the people that we interact with on a daily basis to buy food from and everything, they still have to accept Libra for any of these transactions to make sense, right? So I think there will be a market where we can trade Libra or any sort of these sort of central currencies for trade currencies, or like for different sorts of assets that people might want to invest in. Because as I mentioned in my slides previously, like I think the whole decentralized finance movement currently opens up a lot of opportunities for people to invest into a variety of different assets in a global scale, as compared to what we've been previously used to, like as compared to traditional markets where if I'm based in Singapore, I typically buy Singapore shares or whichever. So I think the global inclusion is pretty important, especially when it comes to stable coins. And I think stable coins and especially like sovereign run stable coins, I think this is a huge step forward for financial inclusion. Yeah.
All right. We already hear from Bido and also Sweet CEO, and now I'm just curious from Harmony. Robin, would you like to share about what Harmony plans for stablecoin on Harmony chain, and why so much focus on stablecoin now?
I did an interview with the CEO of Carbon Money, and he gave me a line which has stuck with me. And he said, "Stablecoins are the gateway drug to crypto," which sounds terrible, sounds horrible. But effectively, stablecoins are a mental on-ramp for, should we call them muggles, the non-crypto heads. And it's I mean, I talked about communication, and it's really important that we remember how much we know and how savvy we are and how little people in the real world actually know even about their own currency and about Forex and these kinds of things. So stablecoins are, to my mind, they are the best way for us to on-ramp people from the real world into a crypto-related space or a crypto-powered space. Because basically what you're saying is we have a one-to-one representation of money that you're familiar with, but we add on all these superpowers. And these superpowers are speed, they're transaction immutability, they are the ability to access, as Jack was saying, all the exciting, composable, weird-ass things that DeFi is producing. But effectively, when you look at it, it's just saying, if I lend money, I will get an interest rate. So we can look at stablecoins as a way to offer a different kind of high-yield savings account. And I think most people would understand that if you presented it in the right way. And that's why, for me, stablecoins really get to the heart of the blockchain problem, which is the volatility. So if you imagine you start with X number of dollars or rupiah or whatever it is, you will finish with that many. You can't lose them, but you might gain some more due to interest. I think most people can wrap their heads around that and be okay with it and start to take those tentative baby steps towards what we're talking about. And it could be vendors, it could be merchants, it could be retail, it could be anyone. But that fundamental, that risk-averse nature that we all have when confronted with savings and our own real money, crypto hasn't solved that yet, but stablecoins give us a chance to do so and language it properly. So that's why we're excited about stablecoins, because they open the world up to us. It's not about cypherpunks anymore. It's not about early adopters. It's just about real humans interacting with their money in a way that makes sense, and they don't have to feel threatened by. So eliminating some of the sort of downside mental risk to that. But of course, we are witnessing an explosion it's not a Cambrian explosion yet, but we might look back on it and think it is, of composability of money Legos. We're seeing all of this on Ethereum at the moment, but you only have to look at things like the hype around the near Ethereum bridge to see that we're going to see this composability between chains now, as one chain has a particular thing it does really well, and we can link back to that. Inherent in all of this is an enormous amount of risk, but at the same time, it will open up really smart people to the possibilities within this space to claim their piece of the innovation and drive it forward. And that for me is why it's so exciting, because there's a real tendency to think about blockchains in isolation, one ring to rule them all. And when we're talking about Ethereum killers, Ethereum is essentially the mother to all these high-speed chains. And why would you want to kill your mother? You don't. You want to look after her and put her in a nice retirement home and make sure she's cared for, because she fed you, she nurtured you. That's how I look at Ethereum in terms of harmony. It's not something we want to kill. It's something we want to protect and nurture, preserve, and respect. And so stablecoins are the way for us to transact value safely and inoffensively between chains, and maybe just get past some of the tribalism that usually gets in the way when we talk about blockchains. Hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you, Robin. For your answer, we are going to move to the next question. How would you guys envision the future value transfer system to become? And how would crypto asset exchanges, stablecoins, and current value transfer system plays a role in it? Dorian, maybe you want to give some thought or view about this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if we look at what we've seen the last few years, in particular, the speed at which this innovation is coming through, I think we're going to live in a very different world. And within halfway through this decade and the end of the decade, we're probably going to end up in a situation where when people say money, you don't think of it in the same traditional fiat sense that most of the population does currently. I think the realities are that the legacy financial systems are so ingrained in everything that there is going to have to be a meld between the two as we're progressing. But it's something we're already starting to see. We're already starting to see mainstream banks in the US given rights to hold custody of digital assets. Even on our side, we're in conversations with some banking institutions throughout Australasia in relation to how they can leverage digital assets to start engaging in the economy in more efficient capacities. I think this, everything all the innovation that's happening in this space is really just showing, hey, look, there are a lot of innovations and there are a lot of inefficiencies in the current systems. So for these institutions, no matter how big they are, they're going to have to adapt and evolve and collaborate with some of these new technologies. I think we will see some of them attempt to almost acquire and stamp out certain areas of innovation. But longer term, I think you're not able to stop it. It's just more efficient. It's a better system. It's quicker. It's more adept to digital natives in terms of how they're dealing with the currencies, the money transfers. We're seeing the explosions in neo banking, which is more user experience based as opposed to all the power being back with the traditional financial institutions. So I think we'll see a meld and then a progression. I'm very, very confident. I'm probably putting my finger in the air here, but by the end of the decade, we are going to be in a place where you're going to have a basket of different value assets that people consider when you say the term money or value.
Thank you, Dorian. Jack, do you have something to add on this?
Yeah, I think as I previously mentioned before, there's a lot of the financial inclusion aspect, but I think a lot of these aspects also lead to having digital money, where as compared to having bank accounts. So it's quite funny because I was just looking at the stats earlier today on the unbanked stats in Indonesia. It's about 180 million unbanked, which is about 66% of the Indonesian population is currently unbanked. So I think it's quite similar to what China's playbook is, right? Like they also have a huge amount of their population being unbanked, living in more rural places, and yet their population has adopted like some sort of WeChat Pay or Alipay sort of system where it gives people access to greater financial products and greater digital products, such as, even without a bank account, I can still call a TT, which is like a Grab or a Gojek in China. So I think that will kind of move towards Southeast Asia as well, as we kind of see with GrabPay and many other payment service providers that Indonesia has been adopting. I think that's that, and also like the future transfer of wealth, where we will see more opportunities for Indonesians, and also like many people around neighboring countries, where the income gap between somebody who's working in, say, Singapore and Indonesia, it gets closer and closer as there's more financial inclusion. Yeah.
Speaking about Indonesia, I would like to ask Joe. Joe, would you mind to share your thought about how all blockchain technology and stablecoin can be integrated into current financial system in Indonesia?
Yeah, sure. I think at least from a technical perspective, I mean, trading a stablecoin is going to be the same as any other cryptocurrency. You're going to be doing it on likely the existing exchanges, and you're going to be loading funds into it from fiat in the same way as well. So you're going to have to go to an exchange or a wallet that kind of has that function to allow you to still buy the stable coin with whatever your home currency is, in Indonesia's case, the rupiah. So I think from the user perspective, buying a stable coin will be just like any other cryptocurrency. Selling the stable coin will be like any other cryptocurrency. You're going to have to interact with the fiat, traditional centralized value systems whenever you're going between fiat and crypto. But as others have pointed out, I think the main advantage is these stable coins that especially represent a basket of currencies like Libra, and which can be safer. I mean, if you're going for stability, which you usually are with a stable coin, it can be safer than even going with like USDT, like a Tether, because USD is going up and down, and the US is a bit volatile at the moment, too, for a couple different reasons. So having something like a basket of currencies where you've got, some euros, some Sing dollars, some Aussie dollars, all in there, can really help protect volatility, and also create, create the option for, investors, hobbyists to own some of this.
Hello, Joe,
without
your
actually
voice is breaking.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Without having to get into, enabling a proper brokerage account for margin trading, so you can do Forex, right? It's much easier to use one of these exchanges and just have, some stable coins in there. So I think for the customer perspective, it'll look pretty similar, but it'll be much more beneficial from a stability perspective and protecting against volatility.
I see. And how would this decentralized value transfer system be applicable in Indonesia, and how it can benefit Indonesians?
Yeah, well, I think primarily for those Indonesians looking to get exposure to another currency, that's probably the easiest one, right? So anyone who's looking for diversification of their, I guess if you're investing, but potentially also for cross-border commerce. So while in Indonesia you're not allowed to purchase goods from Indonesian merchants using crypto, Indonesians, I believe, check me on this, but can still purchase using crypto from other countries. So if you want to purchase an online service, from another country, I believe that's still possible. So that's one advantage. And another advantage is really just a remittance use case, transferring across countries. It's going to be much faster. It's going to be so much cheaper than going through Western Union. And it can operate at any time and in a much more user-friendly way. So transferring crypto across borders, whether that's money in or money out of Indonesia, it's a new venue for that. That's cheaper and faster, and also protects against volatility of the rupiah as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Joe. Gentlemen, anyone want to add on this?
I'll jump in.
In Indonesia. Sure.
I think another key piece is the integration into actual merchant uses of digital assets. So I mean, something we've been working on a lot more recently is smart money, which is sort of just the bare characteristics of blockchain-based currencies and assets. And what we're starting to see is integration into the ability for merchants and retailers, both small and large, to start using these to their benefit. And in some cases, using those not necessarily through the traditional payment networks, through direct transfers, such as through QR code payments systems, which actually gives the ability for smaller operators to actually get rolling and start operating off transactional systems that aren't necessarily hooked into major payment networks, which can be really beneficial in certain areas, particularly throughout Indonesia. We've actually seen a bit of adoption with our smart wallet in relation to the Indonesian market, in relation to peer-to-peer transfers and value exchange, without having to go through traditional financial systems in relation to that, which kind of lets you leapfrog or sort of operate on a more peer-to-peer capacity rather than having to go through traditional financial institutions, particularly in regions that have large populations of unbanked that aren't necessarily all set up and KYC through traditional banks.
All right, thank you, Dorian. Anyone want to add on this? Okay, if not, I already curated some questions from our audience. Gentlemen, allow me to read one by one. We are going to entering the Q&A session, okay? For the first question, this one coming from Oki. To all of the panelists, what crypto asset the most appropriate to choose nowadays? Want to answer it first? Maybe Dorian, you already smile on it, on this?
I don't know if there is an answer to that. It really depends, who you are, where you are, what's the purpose of you getting into the asset. Is it an investment? Is it for usage? Is it for business-based value transfer? It really is use case dependent. I know that's probably not the answer they're looking for, but look at the use case that you're particularly trying to get into for the purpose, and then do a bit of research based on that use case, and you'll probably come up with a bit of options. There's plenty of information available on that.
Okay, so I hope this is answer your question already. Anyone want to add on this? What crypto asset is the most appropriate choose nowadays?
Yeah, sure. I might just say it's tricky. There's no straightforward answer, but just like traditional investing, you got to do your research, right? So if you're thinking about investing in a crypto asset, obviously look up their website, figure out what their mission is, figure out how they want to use that asset. Look at who the founders are, look at what they did before. Dig in a little bit. Do they have any partnerships? What's going to make this valuable? So just like we can do our own research on a stock before we purchase it, you can look at the founders, you can look at prior performance, but honestly, especially now, that's probably not going to be your best predictor. I mean, you want to look at probably you're going to have to come up with your own hypotheses. And I mean, I believe in any investing, kind of value investing, right? Don't just invest. Well, my perspective is don't just invest what you think is going to go up. Do ethical investing, right? Think about, does this support my values as well? But every investor has different goals. So it's based on your goal, but all I can say is do your research before you buy a coin. Look into it, look into the people behind it, and make your decision like you would purchasing a stock in a traditional company.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll jump. Robin?
I'll jump in there, which is to say, if we flip this on its head, the question is about choice. And if you think about that in terms of choice, well, now you have a choice. And if you live in Venezuela, you have a choice. So celebrate that choice. And like Joe was saying, do your homework and then buy Harmony.
It's very smooth to tap into. All right, then. Thank you so much for the advices. Oki, semoga menjawab pertanyaannya. Let's move to the next question. This one is from Ideal and directly asked to Robin. When can Harmony reach cross-border finance delivery to all countries?
Well, that's a big question. There's a lot of countries out there. If we're talking about Vanuatu, it's going to be a while. But I think, there's got to be priorities. Rupiah is a really interesting one because it's a country that can really benefit from this, and we had a good partnership with IDRT. Obviously, a big one for us is going to be Eurozone, and that opens up a lot of countries in one go. So I would say that let's focus on getting the BUSD in the main corridors that make sense, which will be China to the US and the US to India, and in the lesser corridors, talking Vietnam, Indonesia. Southeast Asia is always going to be a big early market for us. Once we're through that and it works and it's trusted, I think that's a big thing we don't talk about enough from a regulatory perspective as well. The trust, because we still need other people at the ends. Then we can go. The timeline, I have no idea. There are so many other people that we're depending on. In terms of technology, it's ready to go. But the groundwork to get the partners in the destination countries, to get regulatory approval, in India, it's very difficult to get a Bitcoin exchange to handle the processing down the other end. But we have one in place on that corridor already, and you know how it works. Once you have one, the next one comes, the next one comes. So, I can't give you a timeline on that, but we're at least on our way, and there is, a roadmap to where we want to go next.
All the best, Robin. Thank you so much, Ideal. Semoga menjawab pertanyaannya. And now I'm going to read the next question from Maulana Ibrahim to all of the panelists. What are the obstacles of the crypto adoption in the cross-border finance? And can it compete with like the other cross-border finance startups?
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, I think
Sure,
it is. I think it can be a competition to normal traditional startups like this that there are now. There have been a couple of really interesting money transfer startups in the last few years that were not crypto. I think I think those startups are still doing very well. But I think crypto can be work on and either some of those startups or or startups that are in the space that I think are very interesting, and that are crypto startups that are working on money transfers and so on, and cross-border transfers. And I think it can be a a very good thing to have in the space, but the main thing, in my opinion, is kind of the user interface, for example, or some things like that, or in terms of privacy or regulations. I think there are other things rather than technology that is probably there for most cases. But when you don't have that kind of education in people, that they may not be able to use it well, or for example, that they have to storing their keys or things like that are very kind of user friendly for people that are in crypto for a few years. But if you are new to it, I think it can be a little complicated. So I think we probably still have some time more that is not available in mass scale, but I think it can be a very good, it can be complementary to the traditional systems that we have today.
All right, thank you. Anyone want to add on this?
I guess I'll just add on lightly. I mean, that
Sure.
trust is a really big thing, and one of the biggest challenges with crypto adoption in general is in that it is a decentralized ledger. That means there's no central authority that you can call up and dispute and say, hey, I lost my money, where is it? I lost my keys, where are they? Hey, I accidentally sent this to the wrong wallet, can you reverse it? You don't have that anymore. It's not like when you're using a Visa or MasterCard, you can call your bank and be like, oh no, my card got stolen, or I left it out in the ATM last night. Like, no, it's true that crypto and blockchain transactions have that finality, which makes them valuable in one way, but also a bit scary for someone who wants someone to talk to on the phone when things go wrong or to raise a dispute. So I think one of the biggest challenges to domestic or cross-border adoption of crypto value transfer is giving people the sense of safety, not just security, because actually that could be scary. Like, oh, it's final. You're like, no, I don't want it to be final, right? I don't want to reverse it. Well, so what people really want is safety, and so I think that's going to be creating that sense of safety is something that I think banks have done very well, and that's something that I think is going to be a challenge for us going forward.
All right. Speaking about safety, here's a question from Harry. Are there any insurance crypto right now?
I'll take this. Yes, there are. It's early days, and DeFi, for DeFi to succeed, there's definitely going to need to be some heavy insurance projects that understand smart contract risk, and of course, auditing like QuantStamp, Certic, to maintain the integrity of contract. I mean, this year we've had so many hacks. A lot of value has been taken and then given back because the hackers hack and then the white hat hackers find them and hunt them down, and it's like a whole game. But you need systems to be tested like that, but you also need safeguards. And just as you would, you know, a 500K insurance on a broker account or a 250K on your checking account, we need to have those things in place. They're coming because everyone can see it's a growth business and there's tons of money to be made. So I'm sure we're going to see an explosion of insurance products and then derivatives on insurance products and insurance products with their own tokens. You can see where it goes. It's a rabbit hole. But yes, it's coming.
Okay, thank you. Pak Heri, semoga menjawab pertanyaan Bapak. Kita akan lanjut ke pertanyaan berikutnya. We are going to move to the next question from Faris Indrajaya. This one is to all the panelists. Here's a question. If every nation create their own stablecoin, what do you think will happen with stablecoin today? Let's start with maybe Dorian want to answer first.
I think that's where we're heading, to be frank. You know, I think as we move forward, the inherent characteristics of digital currencies make it easier to deal with. You know, I mean, in the previous question, you know, Joe and Robin touched on some pretty key points. You know, where we have the inherent you've got the inherent advantages of blockchain assets being, you know, the quicker transfers, the lower fees, but you've also got the elements that need to be covered around the security, the responsibility, the recoverability, all these elements. And when you start to look at a sovereign nation issuing a stable coin, a lot of those elements start to come along with those. You know, I think a key to mainstream adoption is that trust, and a sovereign issued currency really does bring that trust in waves for a lot of the population that doesn't understand the technology quite as much. So you know, to be frank, I think, you know, kudos to China for leading the charge in relation to that. There are some question marks in relation to how they've deployed theirs. I think we're going to see different countries deploying different characteristics into their sovereign digital currencies. But I think any countries that aren't considering it are at risk of falling behind or being forced to adopt other sovereign currencies as the kind of staple mediums of exchange. I think a really exciting piece we're looking at right now is we're right in the crux of a potential move away from obviously the US dollar as a global medium of exchange. And I think in the coming years, we're really going to look at a contest between different nations on what are going to become the dominant universal transfer currencies. And I think it's an open game at the moment. I don't think necessarily these countries or the dominant currencies here have to be dictated based on, you know, like the military force or other financial characteristics of these countries. It could be based on innovation, and you know, what's better for the people that are interacting with these currencies. So it's quite an exciting time, and I don't think has to be one that rules them all. I think we're going to start off very fragmented, like we've seen, and you know, even in the initial utility token space and in this stable token space, which we're looking at now, which will then spread out. People will learn, and then it'll consolidate back down. Yeah.
Okay, Jack, your thought on this?
Yeah, I think as more and more countries move towards adopting their own sovereign digital currencies, that might kind of be the end of banks to begin with. Because, you know, as we all know, like, you know, banks are currently run through using depositors' money to do other sorts of investments. That's why you're able to get some sort of return off your investments. But if people don't fundamentally deposit money with the banks anymore, and it's or within a digital wallet held within the central bank in itself. I think that it removes a lot of power from privately held banks, and through limiting the fractional reserves that they've been doing over the past decades, right? The past few decades and everything. And similarly, I think there will also be a lot of new ways that we will see markets move towards, like in terms of FX transfers. I think we will see a lot of platforms such as like Curve, or even us, like Switcher, adopts some sort of liquidity pool situation where you have people depositing huge amounts of these sovereign currencies into a FX sort of pool, and then they can do this sort of swaps with the least amount of slippage possible. So I think there's a lot more potential that can be explored with sovereign digital currencies. And I think, as Dorian mentioned previously, I think countries that do not adopt sovereign digital currencies are going to lose out heavily on the next wave of innovation. Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Robin, do you want to add some on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable. Digitalization makes a lot of sense. I mean, no one ever really talks about the downside of this, which is the more transparent everything is, the easier it is for governments to track your taxes, all these other things. And so there's more scrutiny on what you've been doing. But I think if every currency is digital, it should therefore make it easier to swap between them. So I would see exchanges gaining more power. There being a lot of innovation around exchanges and how we can transfer value between chains. I think that's where a lot of innovation is going to happen. Just the quick and easy switch from one thing to another, and abstracting that for the end user. So wallets as well. We'll probably see a huge amount of sophistication and exciting innovation coming out, but it's hard to see what that's going to be and how it's going to be at the moment.
Okay. Brian, what do you think about what if every nation create their own stablecoin?
Yeah, sure. So I think, like some people were saying, I think it's going to make exchanges more powerful, probably. And there is also a few negative aspects to that, like in terms of taxes and how governments will see like where transactions are going, and they will have more control, in my opinion. And I think maybe that's not the best thing. I mean, there will probably have to be some kind of layer of privacy or something like that, or in some aspect. But I can definitely see that coming for sure. I mean, in some countries, I think it's going to come first, and then in others may take a longer time, and maybe both systems can work for some time, and it starts very small and then it gets to more countries and so on. But I think it's definitely going to happen. I mean, if you think about all this digitalization in terms of money systems that we have been seeing in the last decade or so, I think it's definitely coming. I don't think it is like extremely positive for all those reasons I was mentioning, but yeah, I think it's definitely coming. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Brian. Joe, do you have any thought on this?
Yeah, I guess another thing to keep in mind is stable. The term stable can be relative, right? Because you can have a stable coin that is stable to, if Venezuela launched their stable coin, right? If you invested in that stable coin, 5-6 years ago, you would have lost a lot of money, had you just kept your money in rupiah or dollars or whatever else you had, right? Because hyperinflation can happen in these countries, and if it's pegged to their currency, you're gonna have the same issues. So I think people will have to know that stable coin doesn't mean stable from your perspective; it means stable from that country's currency perspective, because it is pegged to that currency. So I think having these basket of currencies, again, like Libra or others like that, it can help. But another thing that I think is pretty exciting about having countries issue their sovereign stable coins is that opens up the door for a whole bunch of other interesting things like smart contracts, for example. Like right now, if you want to have money move, when a certain criteria is met, you have to work usually with an escrow account and folks to help you out there. So, once each country has stable coins, that allows 24/7 value transfer, and it's very transparent. It's fast, it's cheaper, and but you can also do these things like it facilitates these operations like escrow or smart contracts. So I think you could really create a number of interesting innovations as well.
Continuing about the previous question coming up from Ahmad. Thank you, Joe, by the way. Continuing the previous question about the stablecoin, how do we know that stablecoin is truly backed up by real asset? Guys, what do you think? How do we know that stablecoin? Yep.
I can jump in on this one. Well,
go, Robin.
The issue is there is a certain stablecoin around which there is a whiff of suspicion that it might not be backed by the coins that it's supposed to be backed by. I won't mention who it is or what it is, but we know. There are attestation reports that are filed, for instance, for Paxos and for BUSD that you can view, and they're verified by legal entities. And BUSD in particular is registered in New York. And New York, as we know, is one of the strictest financial districts to be regulated anywhere in the world. So you could probably trust that one. But again, everything is visible, and you can go on the Paxos website, you can go on the BUSD website, see those attestation reports. I believe the repeal ones, same thing, IDRT, they are visible on the website. You can go and view them. And it's a question of how much you trust the accountant or the legal entity that's supporting them. But with the Paxos ones, I think it's pretty trustworthy now. They wouldn't be in business in New York if they weren't, put it that way. Can't speak for anything else though.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Anyone want to add on this?
I just want to say it's a really good question, and it's scary to think about. I personally was trading crypto, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, and I sold one of the stable coins that I had because there were just reports coming out, and you really don't know, unless those audits are frequent, transparent, and trusted entities. That's a legitimate question. Absolutely do your research. There probably at some point in the future, law of large numbers, there's going to be a stable coin with high volume that things aren't going to go well for, probably for that reason. So definitely keep your wits about you.
Okay. Dorian, anyone wants to add on this?
I'm good for mine. I think Robin and Joe covered it pretty well.
Right. Cool. But there's now one want to add on this question. I hope Ahmad sudah terjawab pertanyaannya ya. We are going to move to the next question. This one is coming from Oki to all of the panelists. Does stablecoin really deserve as a crypto asset? I see a less chance to soar, so seems not really profitable. Brian, do you have any thought on this?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a very good question, and I think it is. Sometimes what is most profitable is what people are more interested in, I guess. But I think it. I also feel the mission, as some people were saying. As in terms of financial inclusion, there are so much more than what people can make from a stablecoin, for example. And now there are so many DeFi options that I think it makes it very profitable for some people to hold a stablecoin as well, in case that they don't want to use it or they want to just hold it like that. But yeah, I think it's it's for people, and thinking about the investment strategy that many people may use or may not. It's really hard to see what people are thinking about in terms of investments, because that's a very personal thing. But I think that the investor in crypto is maybe more risky than ours, and so that's why it could be that they are going to take more risk and move to other coins that are that have like more risk, and that it moves a lot more basically. But I think that stablecoins are a very good use case. Probably less risk depending on what stablecoin you use, but probably, you have less risk and you can still have a lot of, very positive things in terms of investments, in terms of, for example, if you use some of the DeFi options that you have now and that some things that are coming up, I think it's a very good option for those kind of investors.
I'm happy to jump in on this one. So I do a weekly video on DeFi with the DeFi blog, and we talk about this all the time. I think the best thing to think about stablecoins is not the way we think about crypto assets, more traditional ones, which are volatile, which you would sort of equate more to stocks. Like stablecoins, you should consider like cash, and how you would treat your cash. So you're not looking to invest heavily into something. You're just looking for an interest rate. And at the moment, for instance, USDC on Nuo, you can get double-digit percentage APY on that, which is very favorable. You might not trust the Nuo platform, but that's there, and you can move your money around to that platform and gain a favorable interest rate. That's probably the best way to think of it. And for some investors, that's the kind of level of risk they're looking for. The other thing is stablecoins, they're not just cash. They do have these other properties which allow them to interact with other more risky things like Finance and then earn governance tokens. So there are other ways to play the game. But again, buyer beware, do your homework and make sure you understand what it is you're getting into. But there are tiers, and if it's something simple like providing liquidity to compound, that's pretty simple and easy to do. And the wallets for doing that are very nice. It's just a different game. And it's a different way to play with your money and see what you can do. But it's no less exciting for that.
Okay, hello. Sorry, gentlemen. I think I mute the mic. Okay, that was the last question for Q&A session for tonight. Before we close our panel discussion, I would like to ask all of you guys saying 1 or 2 words for our closing statements. I think start from Dorian. Would you like to add some closing statement for tonight before we end this session?
Sorry, was that one directed at me? I'm having patchy audio.
Okay, I would like to repeat the question. We are going to close the panel discussion. I would like to ask all of you guys to say closing statement for tonight. Start with Dorian.
Yeah, I guess what I'd like to say, is Silo and myself in particular, very, very focused on mainstream adoption of crypto. I think it's very, very exciting what we've seen the last few years, and I think it's going to be absolutely even more amazing what we're going to see the next few years, in particular with some of the trends we're now seeing in relation to crypto assets and the technology in general in the space, and also the buy-in where we're starting to see we're teetering on the edges of some pretty significant mainstream institutional stuff. So I think what we've seen the last few years is only going to accelerate from a fundamental technology perspective moving forward to bring this stuff into our day-to-day life in a very real way. And I'm not just referring there to booms and busts and the value. What I'm talking about is fundamental technology development and integration into the day-to-day aspects of our society. And that's something we're really, really focusing on at Silo in terms of engaging with cases and use cases that are going to actually bring this into the hands and pockets and day-to-day lives of everyday users, not just the 2%, but the 98% of muggles, as Robin would refer to them. And I think that's a very, very exciting concept. And it's awesome to liaise with fellows in the space, building in different areas.
Okay, thank you so much, Dorian. Jack, would you mind to say for closing statements for tonight?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty enlightening and fruitful discussion with the other panelists. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Jack. Robin?
Yeah, I just want to say that my wife is half Indonesian, so I really my Indonesian should be better. But wonderful food, wonderful country, and yeah, I'm excited because we have obviously IDRT coming, and a vested interest in seeing remittance particularly work in Indonesia, but also, you know, for Indonesian traders, IDRT operates, you know, as an arbitrage opportunity as well. So I'm hoping to see volume there and real proof in the pudding that a digital Indonesian coin can really thrive. So looking forward to that.
Terima kasih, Robin. Thank you. All right, Brian.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. I think it was a very good panel discussion. I think it's very exciting times for stablecoin and DeFi, and I'm very excited to see what's coming next in the next few months. I think we're gonna see a few really interesting products. I think the last months, in terms of DeFi, we've seen, you know, very cool stuff, and we'll probably keep, you know, seeing stuff like that. So yeah, I hope everyone had a good time, and hope we can, you know, keep working on those things, and also that you know, the people should, you know, keep looking in the space and seeing all the different new projects that are coming up. And I know it's hard to keep up because there are new projects coming up and popping up pretty much every day now. But yeah, I really expect that people can do that. I think it's very, very cool stuff that we're seeing, and it's really innovation about money. So it's really interesting things.
Thank you, Brian. Joe, last but not least.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the panel. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be able to, you know, to connect with the broader crypto community in the country I've lived in for the last 5 years. So really appreciate that. Probably any closing thoughts. I just want to say, for anyone who's just getting into crypto, you know, for whatever your reason, whether it's value investing or remittance or you know, domestic transfer, as a lot have said earlier, you know, do your homework on the companies you use, on the wallets. You know, make sure you back up your private keys and keep them in a safe place, because there's nobody you can call if you lose that. You know, I'm sure you've heard the stories of people losing the USB stick and it's in a landfill somewhere, you know, with $1 million in crypto on it. You know, you don't want to be in that position even with $100 of crypto in it. So just be careful, be safe, educate yourself. Look out for hype. Look out for pump and dump schemes if you're actively trading. Just do your research like you would on any other company, and keep coming in Indonesia Blockchain Week. You'll learn a lot.
Terima kasih, Joe. Sampai jumpa di Jakarta. All right, then, gentlemen, that was our panel discussion for tonight. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I'll wish you success to all of the panelists here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Baik, Bapak-Ibu sekalian, itu tadi sesi panel diskusi kita bersama para panelis untuk malam hari ini. Terima kasih banyak untuk para panelis yang sudah memberikan insight, pandangan, dan juga advices untuk kita semua di malam hari ini, termasuk juga kedua keynote speakers kita yang sudah memberikan informasinya. Baik, sekarang adalah saat yang mungkin Anda semua tunggu-tunggu, di mana kita akan mengundi 10 orang untuk mendapatkan hadiah masing-masing $20 sebagai pemenang beruntung yang akan diundi melalui Wheel of Fortune kita di malam hari ini. Siap-siap, apakah malam hari ini adalah keberuntungan Anda? Kita akan mulai memutarkan Wheel of Fortune. Sebelumnya terima kasih banyak untuk Bapak-Ibu sekalian yang sudah hadir di kolom komentar. Ya, terima kasih banyak. Ada Yudo, ada Sanrio, ada Irdi juga. Terima kasih banyak. Ada Bapak Wildan, ada Zol. Terima kasih banyak. Oke, ini dia sudah muncul di depan layar Anda. Wheel of Fortune. Kita putarkan malam hari ini. Untuk pemenang beruntung yang pertama, saya akan bilang stop. Siapakah pemenang kita yang pertama? yongtanyi@gmail.com. Congratulations. Mari kita putar kembali roda-roda kehidupan ini. Silakan diputar. Saya akan bilang stop. Dan pemenang kedua adalah brooklovers@yahoo.com. Selamat. Lanjut. Kita mencari pemenang yang ketiga. Kita putarkan Wheel of Fortune. Stop. Shahabi.rafdi@gmail.com. Selamat, Shahabi. Tadi ada yang bilang, katanya kurang lama diputernya. Oke, saya putar nih 30 menit ya, Wheel of Fortune-nya. Mari kita putar. Dan mencari pemenang yang keempat. Saya akan bilang stop. Selamat untuk Holil9933@gmail.com sebagai pemenang keempat yang beruntung di malam hari ini. Kita akan mencari pemenang berikutnya, itu pemenang kelima. Putarkan Wheel of Fortune. Saya akan bilang stop. Oke, Solikun 123@etlgr.com. Selamat untuk Solikun. Ya, masih ada kesempatan lagi, tenang. Ya, kita akan mencari pemenang yang keenam. Yang belum menang, sabar. Kita akan bilang sama-sama stop. Dan pemenang keenam adalah realink808@gmail.com. Selamat. Lanjut. Kita putar lagi Wheel of Fortune malam hari ini. Pemenang yang ketujuh. Stop. Wow, sultanhikal5@gmail.com. Selamat. Oke, kita masih ada berapa? 3 lagi ya. Pemenang ke-8. Saya akan bilang berhenti, hey, kau, Wheel of Fortune. Dan pemenangnya adalah inuinsane@gmail.com. Selamat. Kita masih punya 2 lagi hadiah untuk 2 orang pemenang yang beruntung. Kita akan putar kembali Wheel of Fortune di malam hari ini. Stop. Selamat untuk Taufik 120401@gmail.com. Satu pemenang terakhir yang akan mendapatkan $20 di malam hari ini. Siapakah dia? Mudah-mudahan Anda yang belum beruntung. Lamain boleh nggak? Stop. yuki@yahoo.com. Dengan demikian sudah ada 10 orang pemenang beruntung di malam hari ini di webinar, rangkaian webinar di Indonesia Blockchain Week 2020. Terima kasih banyak untuk Bapak Ibu sekalian yang sudah mengikuti rangkaian webinar kita dari hari pertama sampai dengan sekarang. Habis ini kita akan menampilkan QR Code yang dapat Anda pindai atau scan melalui layar gadget Anda supaya Anda dapat mengisi survei, yang dimana survei tersebut adalah pertanda bahwa Anda mengikuti webinar kami di malam hari ini. Dan untuk keyword survei malam hari ini adalah assets. Ya, sekali lagi terima kasih banyak untuk Bapak Ibu yang sudah join. Terima kasih juga untuk para keynote speakers. Terima kasih juga untuk para panelis. Terima kasih juga untuk kru dan juga tim yang sudah bertugas. Kalau gitu saya Nelsi Hombing pamit. Kita ketemu lagi besok di webinar Indonesia Blockchain Week 2020. Nelsi Hombing pamit. Selamat malam Indonesia.